Hi guys, this video will be pretty different from most of the ones I usually do, but I felt like it was probably time to bring this story full circle, and I'm going to explain the full timeline of the Hexbug mod Ocean Man, and explain what the future is for this robot, because recently something has happened that's brought its future into kind of a difficult position. So before Ocean Man, there were a lot of other heavy hitters on the channel, for example Blindside, Cyclone, and a few others. Then later on, around when Robot Chaos Season 3 was being recorded, that was when we made Havoc, which was the channel's original, I'm going to call it a beefy motor robot because it used a motor probably way too big for a Hexbug toy, and it would hit harder than any of the other bots I had at the time, and it was super fun to use, absolute blast using it. But it didn't have much success, but it provided some pretty fun matches. For example, the Bird Brain and Killer Crab fights from Season 4 come to mind. And around when Carnage Cup 2 was being planned, that's when original Ocean Man was made, and it was just a basic vertical spinner from a Bite Force. And it ended up winning the Carnage Cup with a decently powerful weapon and some good driving. It hit pretty hard, but it really all changed once I decided to give it a bigger motor and bring the Havoc motor idea onto Ocean Man. And it became one of the strongest and hardest hitting Hexbugs ever, and was able to launch robots pretty high into the air and do real damage. Fun fact is that Ocean Man retired quite a few robots, including Claw Viper, the original Vlad the Impaler. Fun fact, I actually brought it back, it'll be back soon. And it was also pretty much just unmatched in terms of its sheer weapon power. It probably would have been even stronger if I had gone a different route with it, but no comment on what that route was though. But I learned pretty quickly with it, as I did with the original Havoc, that maintaining it would be an absolute nightmare. There were 3 different versions of Ocean Man that I hoped would be able to reduce this risk of actual danger to myself and filming buddy, and to keep it functional for a full match, because it had issues with that as soon as I gave it the upgrade. So the first attempt at fixing Ocean Man I'm going to call version 2.0. And this version was very similar to the first version. It still ran on regular AAAs, but the difference was that the spinner motor didn't have a pulley on it, so the belt that connected the weapon to the weapon motor was just rubbing on the weapon shaft. And this made it hit slightly less hard, but it lessened the chance of the robot turning itself off, because in the original version, whenever I would spin it up with the pulley on it, it would just automatically shut off and it just died. And this version did pretty well. It only was in one tournament, which was the Ultimate Throwdown. It made it to the championship match against Blindside, which it did lose. But this was probably the most tame of the Ocean Man revisions, but I wanted to make it stronger, and then along came my second attempted upgrade, which I'm just going to call version 3.0. Version 3.0 didn't use the AAA batteries, but I instead attempted to have it run on a 1S LiPo. And this ended up being much more reliable than version 1 was, and it could withstand its own impacts with the pulley. And this version also had a lot more energy. It hit a lot harder with the expense of a little bit of speed. And this was the version that was in Robot Chaos Season 5, where it went undefeated up until Reaper eventually took it out in the quarterfinals. And I didn't have any issues using it for Season 5. The robot was running perfectly fine, and between rematches the battery just needed a charger and it was perfectly fine. And then 3.0 eventually did enter Robot Chaos Season 6 unchanged, and after its first match with complete control, it was still looking perfectly fine. But then when I was preparing to have it fight Ramplane, which was its second fight, I noticed that the spinner motor was refusing to shut off, even after turning the robot off. And this was not a good sign at all, especially with a LiPo. And I realized that I think the chassis was just finally just in a state where it couldn't really be recovered. But it managed to go through at least one more match, which was the Ramplane fight. And at that point, I kind of knew that Ocean Man was going to need to be completely fixed again. And after I tried to reuse it after fight to see if I could fix it, the robot was just done, and it just was not working. So between its Ramplane fight and its third fight, I had to just completely rebuild it. And just a lesson to learn: using LiPos on Hexbug is a bad idea. Just don't do it. Learn from me and don't break your Hexbugs. So the final version, version 4.0, was built between Ocean Man's second and third fight, of course, and this version went back to using the AAAs, but this time I used one more powerful battery to help give it a bit more speed and strength, and hopefully also to fix the issue of it turning off whenever it was on the pulley. And the challenge with making the new version was that I didn't have a full chassis that I could just easily remake the bot with, and in order to get it working, a lot of the gears and parts from version 3.0 needed to be reused in a new chassis, but eventually I was able to get it working, but not in the best shape in terms of looks because of how I needed to dissect the old chassis to get it working. But without a doubt, this version had surpassed all of the others with power and just driving ability, and you'll notice how much faster it is in its third fight of the season against Retrograde. Yes, we'll fight Retrograde in episode 5. Look out for that match. That's a fun one. Haven't been keeping up with the season. Ocean Man is currently 2-0, but I'm going to fast forward to the end of the season to avoid spoilers. And version 4.0, the new version, had been through a lot of matches, some in the actual season and some as exhibitions, but this version had suffered the same fate as the LiPo version of Ocean Man had. Me and Filming Buddy were planning on doing some just exhibition matches for fun way after the season was filmed, and when Ocean Man was turned down, it started to smoke. And this is something that none of the other older versions of Ocean Man have done. This is completely unexpected. Even with the LiPo version, it never smoked like it did. And at that point, I felt like it was probably the final straw with this more powerful Ocean Man with the bigger, beefier motor. And if I wanted to keep this bot running in its current, more destructive form, it would involve a lot more parts and a lot more money needing to be spent. And in total, Ocean Man burned out 4 different weapon motors, and it required parts from 3 different chassis, which is a lot for one robot. And with that in mind, I think it's time to come to a decision. The beefy motor Ocean Man experiment is going to be ending. In the end, as fun as some of the fights were and some incredible matches were fought, it's just too much to keep the bot running in its current state. I don't want to retire Ocean Man. I want to keep it active and a competitive bot in the channel for as long as I possibly can, but for this to happen, a sacrifice will need to be made. This is going to be unfortunate, but there's still going to be bots like Blindside, Top Bot, and Seizure, and many other hard hitters that are still going to be around that aren't suffering the same issues, and Ocean Man will still be a competitive bot even without its original incredible power. But that is all I really had to say. Basically, Ocean Man will be returning to its old form so I don't lose my money and my sanity, and it won't be leaving the channel. But thanks for watching. Look out for the rest of Season 6. It's coming on the way, I promise.